It was said that in the deepest corner of the Carpathian foothills, there lay a village so far from the maps that even the postman had forgotten it existed. At its heart once stood the grand stone church of St. Aurelia, its bell tower high enough to touch the clouds, its carved doors heavy with centuries of devotion. No one knew exactly why the earth took it. Some whispered of an earthquake, others of God's wrath, and some of a curse born from human greed. What was certain was that on the night of the feast of St. Aurelia, decades ago, the church sank into the ground without warning, swallowing the congregation whole. Not a single body was ever recovered. Since then, every year, on the same feast night, the villagers would hear it, faint at first, then swelling into a deafening chorus, the bells ringing from beneath the soil. Some swore they could hear voices chanting a mass that had never ended. Most stayed indoors, bolting their shutters, praying until dawn. But there were always a few curious strangers, lost travelers, who followed the sound. None of them were ever seen again. This year the night had come again, and with it the bells. Mark, a historian chasing rural legends, arrived just as the first toll echoed across the valley. An old woman intercepted him at the village edge, gripping his arm with claw-like fingers. "It's you they want," she rasped. "You've got the eyes of Father Aurelius. His blood runs in you. You're the only one who can set them free." Mark laughed it off at first, but the moment he heard the bells, deep, mournful, echoing through his bones, something inside him stirred. He felt drawn toward the sound, his feet moving without thought. He crossed the abandoned square, past the skeletal remains of houses long deserted, and reached the meadow where the church had once stood. The ground trembled. Then, like a shadow rising from the grave, the blackened spire pierced the moonlight. Stones groaned, glassless windows gaped, and there it was, the church of St. Aurelia, whole again, but shrouded in a dim, otherworldly glow. The great doors swung open on their own. Warm candlelight spilled out, though no wind stirred the air. Inside, rows of parishioners sat frozen in their seats, skin pale as wax, eyes wide with an endless hunger for salvation. The priest at the altar raised his head, and Mark saw the face from the old portraits, his own eyes staring back at him. "You have come at last," the priest intoned, his voice echoing like it came from a deep well. "The Mass must end, and only the blood of my blood can release us." Mark's mind raced. The old woman's words now made sense, but what did release mean? He approached the altar. The air thickened, each breath harder than the last. The priest handed him a chalice, filled with black liquid that smelled of earth and iron. "Drink, and the ground will give us rest." Mark hesitated. The congregation stared, unblinking. The bells tolled faster, louder, as if the church itself was urging him. He drank. The floor split open with a thunderous crack. Cold wind roared up from the depths. The figures in the pews began to fade, their faces softening into peace as they dissolved into dust. The priest's form wavered, a faint smile on his lips before he too vanished. Mark staggered back, the chalice slipping from his hand and shattering. Darkness swallowed the candles. The church began to sink once more, the earth closing over it like a tomb. When he awoke, he was lying in the meadow, the first light of dawn brushing the hills. There was no sign of the church, No sign of the night's events except for the old, rusted chalice lying beside him. The bells would not ring again, but somewhere deep in his bones, Mark knew the ground had not truly let go